So today we're going to talk about Mondo Macabro, which is a DVD company that I've been a fan of for quite a few years. They specialize in world cinema, horror movies, exploitation, action sort of thing, B-movie, from all around the world, North America included, but most of their stuff is from other places in the world. I'll make sure I put a link to the site. It's MondoMacabroDVD.com. And they've got a fair sized catalog now. I think they're still putting out new stuff. I haven't looked at the website for a little while, but I'm assuming they're still putting out some stuff. The first one I ever got was this one right here, Virgins from Hell, from Indonesia in 1987, 94 minutes. The main draw, the first time I became aware of these people was through my friend in Ontario, who's the film buff there. A couple of the titles were on sale at a place in town in Kitchener-Waterloo. The name of the place I can't remember. They used to own, a couple of the guys used to own Generation X video store, which was there. I don't know if it's still there now. Great place to rent movies from. A couple of them split off and formed this other company that dealt with a lot of online sales and things and distribution. Their warehouse was there in Kitchener-Waterloo, so Paul was really good friends with them, so we went through and I bought a handful of DVDs, and this was one that I picked up. And the reason that he recommended it to me is, like, the movie itself isn't that great. It's just kind of a B-movie, women in prison type of movie. Put it this way, I watched it and I don't remember anything about it, because there was really nothing even crazy about it that really stuck with me. The main thing that kind of turned me on to this company was the special features that they have. For quite a while I've had this compilation, I think it was a UK BBC show called Erotica, and I believe it was 8, 10-ish episodes, maybe 12, I don't remember right now, by some of the guys that are in charge of Mondo Macabro. They were the ones that put together this documentary series, and it was amazing, especially for me, being interested in some of these films. They have like whole episodes focusing on like British movies, or another episode dealing with the director Jess Franco, or another episode dealing with softcore porn in France, another episode Jean Rollin, who was this kind of guy that did vampire movies and stuff. So all these different things, but a lot of it was kind of it was all focused on B movies and stuff. So the guys that were in charge of that also put together this Mondo Macabro. So because of their background and all these interviews that they had done, they had a lot of material to put a lot of fantastic extras on these DVDs. On this one in particular, on the second disc, is Destination Jakarta, and it's 70 minutes of trailers from the studio behind Virgins from Hell. There's a documentary on Indonesian exploitation cinema. I mean, where the hell else are you gonna see a documentary on Indonesian exploitation cinema? Nowhere else. So, and those two are amazing. It really makes this worth owning just for that. Then on the first disc is remastered movie, a trailer, there's background information, and then on most of these discs they have their Mondo Macabro previews reel, which basically shows clips from all of the movies that they've put out, the title, with some of the scenes from the movie and sound bites and some great music playing over top of it, just to give you an idea of the kind of things that they're doing. So that's what drew me in. And then it was an easy sale after that when I saw that they were putting out things by one of my favorites, Jess Franco. This one is a France-Spain co-production from 1965, The Diabolical Dr. Z, and it's 84 minutes long. And there's a look at the back there. Hopefully you can see that a little bit. So this one has new transfer, documentary on the director Jess Franco, alternative credit sequences, theatrical trailers with audio clips, exclusive gallery of rare stills and posters, extensive production notes and biographies, Optional French, English language choices, optional English subtitles. So Jess Franco was kind of known for many things. One of them being married to his much younger, who she's not in this one, wife, whose name I had before when I recorded this last time, but for some reason has completely escaped me right now. I don't remember now. Anyway, she was in a bunch of his movies, some of his women in prison films starring in it. He stars in a couple of the movies himself, sometimes putting himself in a very, very strange role opposite his wife. One where she... there's one in particular, Women in Prison film, where he plays her father in a flashback sequence, and he attacks her, I believe to molest her. I think they don't go so far as, well, who knows, I shouldn't say that, it is Jess Franco, maybe they do, I just can't really remember, but I mean things like that, for example. But what he was also known for was the multitude. I think he's still one of the most prolific directors that has ever lived. His credits are like hundreds of titles long, and that's a lot of the time that's because he was filming 3 movies at a time. When he was with these actors in these scenes, he'd be shooting for 3 different films. He'd be speaking up to 5 different languages on set because he'd have actors from all over the world. He'd have them play their parts in their native tongue because it would be distributed. He's one of the guys who was distributing it around the world, and his films would get dubbed into whatever language it needed to be in. But he knew all the languages himself, so he could direct it. There's been interviews with people that have worked on his films that say it was a pretty amazing thing to see him at work on a film set. Just the knowledge that he had about filmmaking, period, keeping all these stories and all these different movies in line in his mind, directing people in certain scenes, and you know, like, he would have been amazing. So this one is incredible, black and white movie, and some great, there's like a little musical moment here where we meet one of the characters, I think it's Miss Death or Lady Death, and she's kind of at this cabaret performance where this kind of strange music comes, and she's wearing this kind of body leotard, and she comes writhing onto the stage, and we're looking at it from above, looking down on the whole thing, and there's a mannequin involved that she kind of... From Pakistan, 1967, 104 minutes, called The Living Corpse, a lost vampire classic and a landmark in Asian horror movies. Now, I believe this was their first horror movie, or one of the first horror movies made there. When it came out, apparently it was banned. It got an X rating. So it all sounds like, wow, that's incredible. It must just be a wild. It's not that wild. I mean, that's the other thing. I guess you're thinking of the places in the world. There is a couple of sexual moments in it for sure, but who knows? I don't know what Pakistan was like in 1967. I can imagine that it probably wasn't as open-minded to certain things as the rest of the world was at 1967, or other parts of the world. I shouldn't say the rest of the world. Other parts of the world were at 1967. So what blows me away about this one in particular is there's the musical numbers. I'm a fan of Bollywood movies. We were lucky enough to have a theater here that still plays them every once in a while. They play newer ones, unfortunately, which are really hit and miss. I've been to see a couple that are really good, but that's because I've made sure I do lots of research, because some of the newer Bollywood movies are just absolute garbage. But the musical numbers are what make it, and in this one in particular, there's a bar scene where a band is on stage, a guy singing a song, and a lone woman doing this kind of traditional, kind of bebop-ish type of dancing, it's a mixture of things. And she's dancing in front of, or behind her are a group of patrons that look so realistic, smoking. There's one guy in particular, every time I think of the scene I can picture his face, because he looks just really hammered, and they all look like they're having a fairly good time. And it's intercut with scenes from what were two really popular comedians at the time, kind of mugging it up and pretending that they're drunk and singing the chorus of the song. It's an incredible, incredible moment. She's got the greatest look. She just doesn't take her eyes off the lens. Like, she's staring you down the entire dance. It's pretty amazing.
Hey! उधर जवानी इधर नशा है माप ऐसे में हर खता उधर जवानी इधर नशा है माप ऐसे में हर खता किसी से हुस्नो बहार मांगो किसी को चाहत के फूल दो किसी से हुस्नो बहार मांगो किसी को चाहत के फूल दो मनाओ मिलजुल के रंग रलियां हसीन बातों को तूल दो हसीन बातों को तूल दो उधर जवानी इधर नशा माप ऐसे में हर खता उधर जवानी इधर नशा माप ऐसे में हर खता ख्वाब रंगी ना होश अपने संभालिए ये रात है एक ख्वाब रंगी ना होश अपने संभालिए ये ख्वाब के टूटने से पहले दिलों की हसरत निकालिए दिलों की हसरत निकालिए उधर जवानी इधर नशा है माप ऐसे हर खता इधर नशा है माप ऐसे में हर खता
And again, the extras on this one, there's newly filmed interviews with cast and crew, there's a documentary on South Asian horror, there's an audio commentary, there's a trailer, another gallery of rare stills and posters, there's a lost song sequence, optional subtitles, and the usual Mondo Macabro previews. So that's The Living Corpse. From France and Italy in 1960, The Mill of the Stone Woman, 96 minutes. I can't tell you too much about this. Maybe I'll just read off the back. In the early years of the last century, just outside Amsterdam, Holland, a young artist is hired to do a study of a famous local landmark, a windmill that contains stone statues of notorious female monsters of the past, murderers, poisoners, witches. One day he meets a mysterious but dangerously beautiful real-life woman in the mill. Before long, he is drawn into her clutches. But who is this girl? And what is the terrible secret that keeps her hiding from the... And it just kind of cuts off there. The DVD version of this horror classic restores all the scenes cut from its original US release, including the notorious topless shots of sexy French star Danny Carell. So this has a new transfer, deleted and alternate scenes, 3 different audio tracks, theatrical trailers, optional subtitles, huge stills and poster gallery, exclusive production notes. I remember really enjoying this one quite a bit. There was some kind of, I think, did it say it on the back here? Kind of Hammer horror-ish, if you're familiar with that style from the UK. Worth checking out for sure. Well, I mean, all of these I think are worth checking out to some degree, especially if you're adventurous. Blood of the Virgins, a blood-drenched vampire epic from the director of The Curious Dr. Hump, with 2 P's. The Curious Dr. Hump has been on my list for a long time to see. There was a company, Something Weird Video. They released all sorts of sleazy, fantastic stuff, and that one is one that I would love to see. There will be a video on, I don't have a lot of Something Weird stuff, but there will be a video of that company as well. So this is from Argentina, 1967. 77 minutes long. Documentary on Argentinian exploitation movies. Again, where are you going to see that anywhere else? Extensive production notes, stills gallery, Patagonian promo parade, optional subtitles, and brand new transfer from negative. Another one that kind of didn't stick with me. I remember watching it and it was okay, but nothing mind-blowing. I think the thing that stuck with me the most was the amazing breasts on one of the lead actresses. I think maybe that stuck in my mind most. Panic Beats from Spain, 1982, 94 minutes, starring the one and only Paul Naschy, who was infamous in horror movies, and playing a werewolf was kind of his biggest role that he's remembered for. One of the movies that I loved, that I remember I think it was the first time I saw Paul Naschy as a werewolf, was Werewolf versus the Vampire Princess, which, if you can find that movie, that is a freaking treat. It's like a horror movie, spaghetti western. It's crazy. It's really good. So this one was okay. That in the Criterion video, I'm talking about the movie Diabolique. This steals that same arc, has the same twist as that one did for this one. This one, it's not as surprising. The main difference about this one is, because it's 1982, I don't know if you can see some of the stills, there's a bit more kind of gore and violence and things in this one. It says on the front, some of the most brutal murders ever filmed, definitely not for the squeamish. But, you know, they say that about all the movies. It's not as grisly as you may think. It's that uber, if you can see, it's that really red blood and stuff, which, yeah, is one of those things that doesn't look all that real. New transfer, exclusive interview with Paul Naschy, documentary on Spanish horror cinema, optional subtitles, large stills and poster gallery, and the usual Mondo Macabro previews. Parts the Clonus horror from the USA, 1979, 90 minutes. Starring Peter Graves from Mission Impossible and Airplane, and Hollywood legend Keenan Wynn from Dr. Strangelove. They star in this dazzling political thriller that works equally well as a pulse-pounding horror film packed with moments of jaw-dropping terror. The beauty of a lot of these films is all that wording. It's not that jaw-dropping, but it's a good one. It's a good kind of, I'd say it's more sci-fi than horror or anything, but New transfer, interview with the director, a director's audio commentary, theatrical trailer, and the Mondo Macabro previews are the ones in there. So there's a look of the back. I think there's 2 versions of this one out, like 2 different covers. Let me just see, yeah, it's not a flip cover or anything. They both contain the same material. Just one is, they updated the cover for some reason. I'm not really sure why. But anyway, it's the same movie on both. One that blew me away when I saw it, Born of Fire from the UK, 1986. If you know Alejandro Jodorowsky, he did El Topo and The Holy Mountain, Fando and Lis, a whole bunch of stuff. He got into some comics as well. He wrote some stories that Mobius did the art for him. This really reminds me of a Jodorowsky movie quite a bit. Similar kind of themes as far as, like, there's a real spiritual theme to it. There's a good versus evil kind of slant. There's a cast of very odd characters throughout. I really liked it quite a bit. Worth seeing. If you ever do see it, it's worth checking out for sure. Nothing. Well, there's an interview with the director. There's interviews with a couple of the actors. There's a trailer, and that's about it. The Mondo Macabro preview reel is on there as well, so not a ton of stuff on it. The Sadist with the Red Teeth, Belgium, 1970, 80 minutes. And Forbidden Paris from Belgium, 1969, 82 minutes. The one that sticks with me here is Forbidden Paris. At some point, maybe I'll combine the two, the Something Weird and another company called Blue Underground. Blue Underground put out a couple of box sets of what are called Mondo documentaries. Mondo Cane being the first of its kind that everybody then ripped off. Mondo Cane and Mondo Cane 2 are they're really big in the box office, kind of around the world. They took, I don't know, I'd say it's probably more like some of the exploitation type of things you'd see on TV nowadays, but it was done for film. So it is documentary stuff. There is stuff that's been kind of recreated that's kind of notorious with some of those kind of Mondo films. It was touted as like the real, you're getting the real gritty side of the world, and they definitely did capture some amazing things in Mondo Cane, no doubt about it, but it's all kind of hyped, and it's all kind of, it's not the best behavior of people around the world. They did some lighter ones. Women of the World, I think, was one of them. So they have done some kind of lighter toned ones. So Forbidden Paris was kind of like a Mondo movie, just going around Paris and showing you some of the seedy underbelly of Paris. So this has a new transfer, a documentary featurette on the film's writer-director, special introduction to both films by the director, newly created English subtitles, extensive production notes, and Mondo Macabro preview trailer reel is on there again. So another thing that Mondo Macabro did, I think as of now I'm not sure if there's 4 or 5, a Japanese film company that I seem to be drawn to is Nikatsu. They were they were just one of the big studios that had their kind of stable of directors and actors and writers and that sort of thing, and they just churn out these things. If you remember the story about Seijun Suzuki being a studio director, your job was to direct whatever feature they gave you. So as things started to change into the 70s, they started getting into pink cinema is what they called it. So Mondo Macabro has a series of Nikatsu erotic cinema movies. This is Naked Rashomon from Japan, 1972, 75 minutes long. The interesting thing about some of these movies is they really kind of some of them really border on fetish, sex, horror. They really kind of... There's one in particular, I don't have it, I think it's called Jack the Ripper, and it really borders on some kind of violence mixed in with the sex, which is always, I mean, even for me, that's a little bit of touchy ground for me as well, mixing the two. I've never been 100% comfortable with it, especially in the way that it's portrayed in here, because I mean, they're really sold as kind of these erotic sex type movies, you know, so to kind of mix some of that in sometimes doesn't really work for me. I mean, it can work, but some of the seedier ones, they get a little too, maybe because it gets a little too real, maybe because it's a lower budget type of movie and you're not exactly sure what's what within it, not a part of the culture, so that also is there. That's a barrier as well. A powerful nobleman's wife is unable to bear him an heir. He takes a mistress who becomes pregnant. When she gives birth to twins, an assassin is hired to kill both mother and baby girl, as only a male heir is required. The assassin falls in love with the woman and saves her life. She goes into hiding, taking her daughter with her. 20 years later, the girl and boy meet by chance. What follows is an avalanche of bloodshed and violence as the girl sets out to take revenge on all those who destroyed her life. And that was a big thing in Japanese cinema too, and something that really appeals to me with a lot of these Japanese movies is the female revenge movie, and there's a lot of those. Female Comic Scorpion, Lady Snowblood are the two big ones with Miko Kaji, but there's a whole series of actresses whose roles were in these kind of, they're either movies about female biker gangs who are really rebellious, but there's a lot of like female revenge movies where it's the woman who has the power in these movies, and the man is kind of this weak, pathetic, and that kind of stuff really appeals to me. And it has a much bigger impact coming from a Japanese kind of background and an Asian kind of background, where you know that overall the repression and kind of ideals about certain things is maybe not as much in Japan anymore. I'm sure there's still a lot of traditional values and things, but I can imagine at the time some of these movies would have been very kind of subversive as far as having these women in these strong roles, you know. And then of course we could go into a whole other discussion of how strong are the roles. I'm sure that within that, because they're still required to be naked within the movie, so really how strong are the roles if they still have to give into these kind of behaviors, you know. We could go into all of that for sure. That's a discussion you and me can have at another time. Anyway, so this one's got a new transfer, another documentary on Japanese cinema, a trailer, introduction by film historian Jasper Sharp, subtitles, Mondo Macabro previews, and then the only other one that I have in this series is Sins of Sister Lucia from Japan. This one jumps to 1978, 70 minutes long. Rumiko is a very naughty girl. After seducing her English teacher and stabbing one of her father's hoodlum pals, she is sent to a convent to be put back onto the straight and narrow. Bad mistake. The convent turns out to be a hotbed, literally, of deviant sexual practices. Spanking, strange bondage games, and lesbian canoodling are the holy orders for these naked nuns. A classic naughty nun saga in the tradition of Convent of the Sacred Beast and Alucarda, both of those which are great. Alucarda was put out by Mondo Macabro too, and that's high on my list of ones to get. It's a fantastic movie. This film is directed by Kaio Ohara, the talent behind some of Nikatsu Studio's most controversial fare, including Wet Rope Confession and Fairy in a Cage. This one, a new transfer. This one has another, I think it's the same documentary. It says there's a documentary on Japanese cinema. I believe it's the same documentary on both of these. Trailer, introductions again by Jasper Sharp, subtitles, and the Mondo Macabro previews again. So there we go. Yeah, thanks for watching, and of course comment on these videos Tell me what you think of the look at some of these films. Are you enjoying it? Do you want more? Just let me know. Yeah, thanks very much. We'll talk to you.